Hey again. I just want to talk candidly with you about a topic that a lot of wellness advocates will ask me about at some point. And you've probably wondered this or maybe asked your immediate upline leader about this as well. So, people want to know, should I form an LLC or corporation when I'm with a network marketing company? So, should my doTERRA business be an LLC? So, it is a personal decision. Of course, you're not required to do that, but there are some advantages. And so, some of the advantages of having an LLC would be protection from personal liability. So, if you have any issues with debts or things that come up, like legal issues, your personal assets are protected if your business is an LLC or a corporation. And so, otherwise, there's not really any difference between the individual and the business. So, your personal assets could be at stake if something goes awry with your business. And we don't foresee that. I've never seen that happen to anyone. But things like that can come up, whether someone just gets upset because they tripped and fell and got hurt at your class and they want to come after you, just things like that. You can also look into insurance for that, but that's a different topic. So there are some also potential income tax savings when you are an LLC. So you can be a sole proprietorship. That's what you normally would just file your business as with your personal income taxes. But as an LLC, there are some tax advantages and benefits. And also, in some states, LLCs may choose to file as an S corporation, which actually has even more tax advantages. So I'm not going to get into all of the details with that because I do recommend that you get professional help to decide if that's something you should do. You may want to talk to a CPA or even someone who's in corporate law to figure out if that's a good fit for you. You can also do some research online. But with an LLC, what you would do, you would file paperwork with your state. And so the first thing you can do is look for your state's registered business list to see if the name you've been thinking about has already been taken in your state. So when I was looking at Clearly Essential, I went to see if that was registered in North Carolina. It wasn't. It also wasn't registered in Tennessee. So that worked out well when I moved. And I also went to websites. I just looked, is there a clearlyessential.com? Is there a clearlyessential.net? Is there a Clearly Essential business page on Facebook? Things like that. I wanted to see how common the name was, how often it had been used, if it was even available, because you do have to register with the state and it does have to be a unique name. And you could do that even without becoming an LLC. You could file your name with the state and open a business checking account under that name and operate as that name. But there are, again, those benefits for being an LLC. You would also then, if you want to be an LLC, get an employee identification number. It's also called your federal tax ID number from the IRS. So you would file for that. And there's some different licenses and permits for certain types of businesses that we generally don't run into unless you do want to have an office or a class space that you lease or something like that. There might be some other paperwork and things like that. You can then open a business banking account. So you can separate what's going on with your LLC banking versus your personal account. And really, whether you decide to do an LLC or not, you want to maintain very accurate records for your taxes. So as soon as you've decided you are building a business with doTERRA, you want to start keeping really good track of your costs, whether you are buying office equipment or printer, paper, or ink, anything like that that you buy specifically for your business. And you can also get a square footage of your office space if you have a dedicated business space in your home that you're working out of. You can have a tax write-off for that. Another important thing that people don't always think about early on is tracking your mileage. You definitely want to have a little notebook, or there's apps for that, where you track your mileage as you are driving to classes or one-on-ones, or even just to the office store to pick up things that you need for your business, because that really adds up. You get a deductible amount back per mile for that. You do want to make sure that you know if you want to file your actual expenses for your vehicle, or just get that mileage credit. And if you're doing the mileage credit, then you would need to know your beginning and ending mileage for the year. So what your odometer reading is on January 1st every year is important. If you're just starting in the middle of the year, you can kind of guess what your mileage would have been on January 1st. But then every year on December 31st or January 1st, record what your mileage was. So it can be seen how many miles total you drove your vehicle and how many of those were specifically for business. So that's regardless of whether you decide to set up an LLC. So if you do want to look into setting up an LLC or filing as an S corp or any of those types of things, you might want to talk to an attorney, an accountant, or a tax advisor. You can also look at the SBA website, the IRS website, to get some information. Your state's Secretary of State office you'll have to work with for filing. Your county and local government offices too. You most often you'll have to file your business and register with your county register of deeds. So those are some of the things to consider. And a lot of people also ask, well, what about the amount of income? Does that affect when I should consider becoming an LLC? When I was looking into it, the accountants that I work with said that really when people are at a point of making about $20,000 to $30,000 a year, that's when they should be looking into forming an LLC. That's when a lot of those tax benefits can come into play. You can do it sooner though. You certainly don't have to wait until then. If you have a viable business and you know that you're committed long term and you want that personal liability protection, you can certainly do that sooner. And I wish I had done it sooner. I did not form my LLC until I was diamond. And so that previous year, I had gone from silver at the beginning of the year to gold to platinum to diamond. And during that year, I did end up paying a lot more in taxes than I had to. So if you aren't doing that, if you're just filing as a sole proprietorship with your personal taxes, then you would want to always be setting aside about 25 to 30% of the income you receive from doTERRA so that you have that to pay your taxes at the end of the year. Chances are you won't have to pay that much because you will have deductions from your expenses, your miles, those types of things. But just be careful that you have that set aside so you're not hit with a tax bill that you weren't expecting and you're not prepared to pay it. Keep in mind too, things like all the resource books behind me, if they are to give to customers or if you have other gifts that you give as a welcome gift to customers, all those types of things are deductions. If you are sending team gifts, if you're shipping supplies. So that is also when you have a lot of expenses, it does make sense to start a separate business checking account. And I would actually start that right away as well, as soon as you're able to fund a little bit of a business account so that it is not an ordeal to go through and separate all your personal expenses on your bank account. Save your receipts as well. You definitely want to make sure you have all of that in place in case you ever get audited or you're working with an accountant who wants to see your receipts. That's very common. So those are some of the basic tips. I'm not sure what other questions. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that has come up regularly. There is a training I recorded a few years ago with a CPA who's on our team. She's a silver leader on our team, and she's also got a tax business. And she did a video with some really great tips. And I know some others of our diamond leaders have done some videos with tax attorneys or accountants over the years giving tips on that. So reach out if you would like more of those kinds of tips in another type of training video or a website or blog. A lot of us have some of favorite resources, but chances are maybe you know someone in your family or among your friends who's an accountant who could maybe have a friendly conversation with you about it. They can't give you legal advice or anything else, but they could maybe weigh the pros and cons with you to see if it's something that you should consider and look into further.